I'd like to begin by recognizing that we're gathered here today on unceded
Bonjour. Nous aimerions reconnaître que nous sommes ici réunis sur le territoire non cédé des Anishinaabe-Algonquins. Le peuple vient vivre sur ce territoire depuis des millénaires. Leur culture et leur présence nourrit continueront d'enrichir ce territoire. La ville d'Ottawa honore les peuples et
The City of Ottawa also honors First Nations, Inuit, Métis peoples, and their valuable past and present contributions to the land. Again, on behalf of the City of Ottawa, I'd like to welcome councillors, members of their staff, and members of the public and media. Thank you for joining us for this technical briefing. Merci de vous être joint à nous pour assister à cette séance.
thank you for joining us today for this technical briefing.
On the O-Train South Extension trial running. Trial running marks a major milestone for this transformational project, and I want to thank staff for their work in getting us here today. Nous discuterons aujourd'hui.
Today, we will discuss a status update on the O-Train South Extension trial running. Trial running marks a major milestone for this transformational project, and I want to thank staff for their work in getting here today.
That the train systems, maintenance, and operations personnel are prepared to operate the system under real-life conditions. We have heard many updates about the preparations for trial running, and I'm pleased that we will hear an update on the timing today. Stage 2 LRT will transform the way we move in our city. The new extensions will build on the existing east-west rail corridor to connect more of our communities together to the east, west, and south. And we, of course, are very excited to launch the system. Ce projet du train léger sur le rail nous offre
This light train project is also a way for us to improve connectivity within the City of Ottawa and to provide more mobile options for bike, walk, and transit for residents.
To do that, we need to ensure that the system is safe and reliable. Trial running is an important component to ensure that the system is ready. As we will hear, the process of trial running incorporates the lessons learned from Line 1 and the recommendations of the public inquiry report. The public inquiry had many helpful recommendations regarding trial running for the new LRT lines, including the importance of having objective criteria set out in contracts, the need for independent expertise to oversee the process, the need for trial running to mimic as close as possible the actual public operation of the service, and the need for absolute candor and transparency in reporting to council and to the public. Through their reports to the Light Rail Subcommittee, staff have demonstrated that these and other lessons and recommendations have been incorporated in the Stage 2 Light Rail. Now, staff will provide an update on where we stand in terms of the trial running of the O-Trains Line 2 and 4. With us today from Transit Services Department, we have a number of folks, including Renée Amilcar, General Manager, Richard Holder, Director of Rail Construction, Troy Charter, Director of Transit Service Delivery and Rail Operations, Amanda Thompson, Manager of Strategic Communications. They will be available to answer your questions today. After the briefing, I will open the floor to questions from members of council, beginning with one question and one follow-up. And if time permits, additional questions can be posed once all members have had their turn. When members of council have asked their questions, we will take a short recess before resuming for the media availability. And with that, I will now turn it over to Renée. Je vais passer maintenant la parole à Renée. Merci.
I'm giving the floor to Renée Amilcar.
Très excitée d'être avec vous cet après-midi.
Hello, everyone. It's a real pleasure for being with you today.
Joining us today for a technical briefing and an update on trial running on the Stage 2 South Extension, Lines 2 and 4. I'm very happy to be here today as we have exciting news to share. First and foremost, I would like to say that trial running is to test Transit Next. This is Transit Next final exam. Over the past few months, we have reached several significant milestones, making great strides towards getting ready to open Lines 2 and 4. In July, we held a technical briefing to discuss the South Extension's trial running program, covering prerequisites, scoring, and the pathway to passenger service. In August, we provided further updates at the Lightwell Subcommittee, and I'm happy to report that since then, we have been steadily working to enhance system reliability through continuing the daily operation of trains on line 2 and 4. We have completed practice runs, finalized station construction, and continued training our rail operations staff. Through these pre-trial running activities, we have built up the system's reliability, and I'm confident we are ready to begin the trial running phase. Before we get into details, I want to remind you of the purpose of trial running. The goal is to demonstrate that the O-Train lines 2 and 4, including all of the vehicles, infrastructure, and system components, are ready to consistently and safely support service to the public. This includes testing of the system as a whole, including rail operations and maintenance procedures. As I have stated many times, the 104 recommendations from the Public Inquiry Report and lessons learned from Stage 1 LRT have been incorporated into trial running. We have worked to ensure that every single best practice from these reports is put in place. The trial running period will have 2 phases, which will take place over a minimum of 21 days. It is important to note that the standards for testing are very high, and it may be necessary for trial running to extend beyond the 21-day time frame. In the first phase, we will simulate normal passenger service on the O-Train South extension. During this time, the system must achieve a minimum on-time performance of 98.5% over a rolling 40-day average. Richard would further explain what this means in a few moments. We will extend this phase until the system has met this high performance threshold. Once we achieve that goal, we will enter the second phase, daily operational and maintenance scenario evaluations, lasting 7 days. Over this 1-week period, our operations and maintenance teams will navigate various scenarios typical in regular service, including door issues, stop trains, single platform only service, train swaps, and more. Even with all the preparation, we know that there will be challenges that we need to be prepared for. Je vais le dire en français aussi parce que c'est très important.
In the other language, because you have to understand, even with all the preparation, we know that there will be challenges, but we're prepared for that.
South line has a very different design than line 1. For example, with sections of single track in some areas, switches become very important for ensuring the safe and timely operation of the system. At the same time, because we're using diesel-powered trains, there are no overhead wires to worry about during winter storms. We have developed comprehensive plans to manage these sorts of issues effectively and are testing those methods in on-site scenarios. We can now confirm that trial running will begin on October 7th. Based on this timeline, we anticipate that the earliest possible opening of the system to the public will be mid-November. This is an estimate, and as we progress through trial running, we will gain a better idea of when the system will be ready to go into passenger service. I want to be abundantly clear. We will not open the system until we are absolutely confident of its readiness and safety, which will be based on clear and objective standards and in consultation with independent third-party experts. We are making excellent progress and are ready for trial running. I would like to thank the entire team and rail construction program, Transit Next, Transit Service Delivery, and rail operations, and everyone at OC Transport for their hard work and collaboration that has brought us to this major milestone. Once we commence trial running next week, we will closely monitor the system's performance, gather data, and make necessary adjustments. We will also provide daily updates Monday to Friday to ensure that Council, the public, and media are kept fully informed of the testing results. Throughout this process, our priority is to ensure that the system is safe and reliable for our community. Transit Next has spent the last several years preparing for this test. This is Transit Next final exam, and it will be a rigorous one. Transit Next and OC Transport have studied hard, have practiced multiple times, and we are united in our confidence in the reliability of the system. But the proof will be in the daily testing results. Those results alone, which everyone will be able to see, will determine the success of trial running. When we are done on return to Council with our final report, everyone will have come on this journey with us and will see what we see. Now, we will begin today's presentation. Next slide, please. We have dedicated several years to preparing for this important phase. I'm shaking today for a good reason. In 2022, we took our first steps by testing our vehicles on a small section of track. This initial testing was crucial for learning about the Stadler Flirt vehicles and making adjustments where necessary. As we gained insights, we expanded our testing area and introduced on-the-job training for our diesel rail operators. This hands-on experience has been invaluable in ensuring that our team is well prepared for the challenges ahead. For the past several months, we have been running trains in a way that is similar to what is expected for trial running to ensure we are ready. 9 trains are the maximum that will be running on the line, and 9 trains have been running. This preparation has significantly increased the reliability of our system. Next slide, please. As we have shared for the past several months, we have been preparing for trial running. We have now completed all the prerequisites for trial running. By doing this, we are now ready to begin trial running on October 7th. Once we successfully complete trial running, a thorough report will be shared with Council. From there, we will work on achieving substantial completion and the necessary regulatory approvals, which Richard will share more details on. We will start with Richard Older, the city's director of the rail construction program, who will dive into the specifics and outline our next steps toward launching lines 2 and 4. Following Richard, Troy Charter will provide information on final readiness activities that will occur after trial running in order for OC Transport to be ready to open lines 2 and 4 to the public. Finally, Amanda Thompson will provide information on communications through trial running and the customer readiness campaign in anticipation of the opening. Thank you very much. Over to you, Mr.
Okay, thank you, Renee. Good morning, everyone. I am very happy to be here to talk about the much anticipated trial running that will start next week. And I'm happy to run through all the details to provide full transparency of the process. In the next few slides, I will provide an overview of the trial running and walk through the different elements involved in trial running. On your screen now, we can see the 9 different trial running prerequisites. We have shown this list before, and now we're happy to confirm that every item has been completed. Next slide, please. In a previous update, I talked about the fact that there continues to be a decrease in the number and scope of issues that are being reported from the line. The issues that do occur are also having less impact on service delivery. And this is what we expect to see as we continue to exercise the system. As you can see from the graph on the slide, over the last 14 days, the daily on-time performance of Transit Next has stabilized at consistently high levels. The average on-time performance for the last 10 days has been 99.12%. Next slide, please. In the next few slides, I'm going to talk about what trial running looks like and the performance metrics we are tracking closely. The fundamental objective of trial running is to exercise the complete integrated system infrastructure, including all subsystems, operating personnel, and operating procedures. This will allow us to confirm the readiness for revenue service. Trial running is made up of 2 phases, with the process lasting a minimum of 21 days. The first phase, which is the simulated passenger service, will last a minimum of 14 days. During this phase, Transit Next must maintain a minimum on-time performance of 98.5% over a 14-day rolling average. The second phase is the operational and maintenance scenario evaluations, where different scenarios that may arise during regular service are evaluated. This phase will last 7 days. Next slide, please. Now I will provide an overview of how trial running will work, and in the next few slides, I will speak about the performance metrics. On-time performance is measured by assessing on-time departures at terminus stations for both lines 2 and 4, while respecting dwell times. If a departure occurs beyond 30 seconds from the scheduled time, it is considered to be a late departure. To be clear, when we talk about line 2, we are talking about the on-time departures between Bayview and Linebank stations. And when we talk about line 4, it means on-time departures from South Keys stations and the airport station. Service reliability is a measure of on-time departures divided by the number of planned departures. Like all systems, we expect some small difference in on-time departures from day to day. And that is where the rolling average calculation comes in. The rolling average accounts for daily variations. For trial running, a minimum of 98.5% rolling average over 14 consecutive days is needed. If this is not the case, this phase of trial running will be extended. Next slide, please. So similar to performance during normal service, and in accordance with the project agreement, the contractor will not be evaluated on any non-project caused events that may otherwise impact on-time performances. Non-project causes are issues that arise that are not within Transit Next control. Examples of this would be delays or issues caused by the city. These may include issues with the head-end equipment or operational issues like operator availability. Another example are delays that would be caused by third parties, potentially adjacent construction activities. And another example would be the CN movements that occur at the Walkley Diamond near Walkley Yard, that occur during the week and will cause passenger trains to be held for a short period of time. The on-time performance calculations during trial running are adjusted for any non-Project causes. Next slide, please. Now that I have talked about what the daily performance metric is, I will now speak to the daily sequence of events that happen to get to the final scorecard. Every day, the city and Transit Next bring forward information from the Transit Operations Control Center, the Maintenance Management System, and other sources for evaluation. All late and missed departures from terminus stations are reviewed in a daily meeting. This meeting, the Testing and Commissioning Team Trial Running Meeting, has representatives from Transit Next, the maintainer, RCP, OC Transpo, the independent certifier, and the system integration verifier. All participants evaluate the data from the previous day of operations, review the late or missed departures, and attribute to either Project-Co, which are Transit Next responsibility, and non-Project-Co causes, which are not Transit Next responsibility. These non-Project-Co causes are then removed from performance calculations. These metrics are then used to produce the daily on-time performance calculation for the preceding day. This whole process is overseen and validated by the independent certifier. Next slide, please. In the next couple of slides, I will walk through an example calculation for the daily on-time performance. So the testing and commissioning team determines the number of on-time departures that are attributed to Project-Co. This number is then divided by the planned number of departures. In the example on the screen, we have 330 on-time departures attributed to Transit Next, and the total planned for that day is 338 departures. So we divide 330 by 338, and we get to our daily performance, which is 97.63%. Next slide, please. To calculate the 14-day rolling average, we add up all the daily performance of each of the days, and then divide it by the number of days since the trial running has started. So for this example, we're looking at the first 2 days. Transit Next performance was 100% and 99.41%. We add these two together and divide by 2, and that gives us an average of 99.7. In terms of the full trial running period, it's important to note that the 14 days will be the last 14 days for the purpose of the calculation. Next slide, please. In the scorecard that we'll be using to report back, we will identify issues that have occurred on the system that may impact the daily performance. Train systems are complex, and issues can arise as the system is exercised. The daily scorecard will include a high-level category of the types of issues that are impacting Transit Next daily performance. On the daily performance report that Council will receive, there are 5 categories of issues the daily performance could list. They include signaling issues. This includes issues with equipment used to detect train location, such as coupling coils, issues with the automatic train supervision system, or issues with the routing of trains resulting in timetable issues. We have track issues. These include issues with the rail and track infrastructure, for example, issues with the switches or rail profile. Communication system issues. This includes issues preventing remote activation or reception of information from field equipment, such as the portal guideway intrusion detection system at the Dow's Lake Tunnel, switches, or other systems remotely accessed by the Transit Operations Control Center, such as the supervisory control and data acquisition, closed circuit television, and automatic train system. Vehicle issues. This includes a range of error codes, compressor issues, traction issues, CCTV cameras on the trains having issues, and the heating, ventilation, and air conditioning system. And finally, there are operational issues. This includes issues where emergency brake applications have occurred, possibly because of an overspeed, diesel rail operator availability, and excess dwell times at stations. Next slide, please. So to bring that discussion together, we have a picture here at the bottom of the screen of what the actual daily performance report will look like. This daily memo will be provided to Council Monday through Friday to provide full transparency on TransitNext's progress and performance during each day of trial running. As my colleague Amanda will talk about, this performance report will also be shared with the public. The key information that Council will receive in this daily performance memo includes the daily TransitNext performance, issues identified, the current 14-day rolling average, and the minimum number of days left to achieve that 98.5% rolling average. Next slide, please. So the timelines on your screens now show what trial running for 21 days could look like should there be no major issues. As Renée has mentioned, trial running will start on October the 7th with the simulated passenger service segment. Here is where TransitNext must achieve 98.5% 14-day rolling average to move to the next phase of trial running. If at any point the daily performance drops to 78% or less, additional days will be required. Should the 98.5% 14-day rolling average be achieved, the first phase would conclude at the earliest on October the 21st, and then the next 7 days would be the daily operational maintenance scenario evaluations that my colleague Troy will cover shortly. This potentially could wrap up as early as October the 29th, concluding the trial running phase. Next slide, please. So on the screen now is an example of the daily performance report for the first 14 days of trial running. As shown on the screen, one of the scenarios that could happen is that the TransitNext performance drops on the last day, and this impacts the 14-day rolling average. In this example, this would require an additional 14 days to recover to meet the 98.5% required standard. We will not be rushing trial running, and we will continue until the 98.5% 14-day rolling average as required is achieved. Next slide, please. There are several independent third parties that we've engaged throughout this process. Ricardo Rail is our system integration verifier. They provide verification of interfaces and integration issues between project teams, which include the city teams that are responsible for key systems such as the head end. There is AECOM, who will be overseeing overnight maintenance, and they'll be submitting reports for verification of maintenance activities. We have SENA, who are our safety auditors, and they provide validation of compliance with safety requirements for the project. And importantly, we have AW Hooker, which is the independent certifier, and they validate trial running results acceptance. They have a key role in verifying requirements for substantial completion and final completion. And they also provide certification of payments. Next slide, please. Before I hand it over to my colleague, Troy Charter, I went through a lot of material in the last few slides. So just to emphasize, the key points are trial running will start on October the 7th. It will be a minimum of 21 days and consist of 2 phases. The first phase will last a minimum of 14 days, and Transit Next will need to achieve a 14-day rolling average of 98.5% before moving on to the second phase, which I will now hand over to Troy to cover.
Thank you, merci Richard. Depuis plusieurs mois, Aussi Transport et T-Next font circuler les trains selon le service régulier et simulent
We will
plusieurs
be actually going through the trial running and before we can actually open to public.
where T-Next must demonstrate the achievement of the performance expectations of normal operations, as my colleague Mr. Holder discussed. Over the final 7 days of the trial running period, we'll be running various scenarios designed to test and verify the operating procedures, the practices, and the technical elements. All those types of things when we wouldn't be necessarily running on a normal schedule. We've been running, the 14 days. It's going to be that normal schedule we'll be operating. We've been doing that extensively over the past several months. And then that 7 days, some of that will be normal schedule, but we'll also be looking at really sort of trying to test and exercise the system, our staff, and how we respond. Some of the scenarios that we'll be operating include removing trains from service due to things like spills or biohazards, servicing customers using only one platform or one track, operating around an obstruction, and running alternate service patterns where a train is unable to access a portion of the line. We're doing all this so that we've assessed and ensured that we're prepared should disruptions occur when in service. For us, it's about it's about practice, and you're going to hear me say that again. We want to practice these things. We want to assess, and it's about validating T-Next and their systems, but it's about evaluating our staff and making sure they've understood our standard operating procedures, our training, and our programs, and we respond accordingly. Some of the scenarios have already been put into operation. We've already tested. However, this is the final test, as Renée Amilcar mentioned, and we are looking to assess and validate numerous scenarios as part of the trial running process. At this point, I'll just hand it back to Richard for a couple slides, and then I'll be back.
Thank you, Troy. So now that we have covered the process for trial running, I'll speak a little bit about what comes after trial running has concluded and what we need to do before we start revenue service. Next slide, please. There are a few key steps before we open lines 2 and 4. After trial running concludes, we then proceed to substantial completion. And then concurrently, we start working on the regulatory approvals required from various agencies, including Transport Canada. After substantial completion occurs and we have regulatory approvals in place, we go into the final readiness phase, which we expect will take a minimum of 3 to 4 weeks. As Renée mentioned, at this point, we would come back with a report to council at a formal meeting to present a possible opening date and summarize the results of trial running. After all these steps are completed, we would be in a position to open lines 2 and 4. Next slide, please. So in terms of providing a little bit more detail, I'll talk about the final certifications and approvals. When it comes to certifications, we require a certification of substantial completion by the independent certifier, including confirmation of the minor deficiency list and verification of handover for new municipal infrastructure. We also require completion and submission by Transit Next of the final engineering and safety assurance case, otherwise known as the safety case. Lastly, the final review of the Transit Next safety case by the city's independent safety auditor, Senna, would complete the certification requirements. For the regulatory approvals, we require the issuance of a certificate of fitness by the Canadian Transportation Agency and confirmation of a notice of change in operations to Transport Canada. Lastly, this would be followed by the issuance of a railway operating certification by Transport Canada. Before I hand over to Troy, I want to thank my team at the Rail Construction Program and all the colleagues working within OC Transpo who have put in long hours to ensure that we get to this milestone. And their dedication to our city and professional is something that I am very proud of. Thank you, and I will now hand over to Troy.
Thank you again, Richard. So once the construction contractor has reached substantial completion and the necessary regular approvals are secured, some of the high-level information that support the startup of operations includes the fact that the overall system will have been rigorously tested with extensive operation of 9 trains, from January of this year all the way through to trial running in October. The system will have been operating and maintained at the expected service levels for an extended period of time. And most importantly, and I can't emphasize this enough, no new or emerging safety or reliability issues have been identified during the trial running period that would prevent a safe, reliable, and successful launch of the system. It is at this point that the city would then be in a position to announce an opening date. Next slide, please. We get into the final readiness. For a minimum of 3 weeks after trial running, OC Transpo and TNEX maintenance teams will carry on with final preparations and readiness activities for the system launch. The goal of this period is to maintain operations as if we were actively in service, fostering experience and confidence amongst the teams. We want to strengthen our ability to respond to various real-life incidents and ensure that our actions promote a safe and reliable service. In short, it can be summed up in 3 words, and I've already said it once, but I'll say it 3 more times: practice, practice, practice. During this period, we will simulate service by conducting daily launches, ensuring that our maintenance team prepares vehicles for launch each day. We'll verify that the inspections and necessary corrective actions are completed according to the maintenance standards, and we'll maintain that reliable and consistent schedule. Additionally, we aim to practice and reinforce common scenarios that staff will need to handle once service begins. Although our teams have been training and reviewing standard operating procedures for the past several months, repetition is essential. We will carry out a series of drills and exercises designed to reinforce our team's knowledge. These activities include responses, again, to common situations, troubleshooting train doors, managing short delays, handling passenger inquiries via the onboard intercom system, addressing medical emergencies, and those are just a few of the scenarios and situations that we're going to be practicing and drilling with our staff. Next slide, please. Safety of our customers is always our #1 priority and drives all our decisions. As mentioned at previous briefings, we have conducted hundreds of drills, tabletop exercises, standard operating procedure reviews, as well as we've conducted so far 3 full-scale exercises, including one of which was the emergency incident or customer evacuation, a drill that was conducted just outside the station at the Ottawa airport. As part of our readiness activities, we have planned for 2 additional multi-stakeholder drills involving our emergency response partners, including Ottawa Fire, police, paramedics, and additional stakeholders such as the Airport Authority and Carleton University. These 2 additional exercises will provide opportunities to continue to test and further validate OC Transpo's emergency response procedures. It is important that we seize as many opportunities as possible to practice emergency response situations in a live environment, to work with our emergency response providers, and to familiarize those with as much firsthand knowledge of the system, the protocols, and the infrastructure that exists. The reality is that when we're in operations, those opportunities are limited. So right now, it's an important step to seize that opportunity to do these things now. The first exercise will simulate a situation where emergency responders will need to cross the rail line to respond to an emergency at the Ottawa airport. And then the second exercise will be an emergency involving a train human contact situation in the Dow's Lake Tunnel. So those are 2 exercises that are planned in those final 3 weeks. Next slide, please.
As we approach the opening of line 2 and 4, we'll be undertaking wider scale tests.
Mimic service with customers for the first time. We want to secure participants who are unfamiliar with the system, who do not know all the inner workings, to replicate how customers will use and interact with the trains, the signage, and the station infrastructure. This will help us to understand how new users will access the stations, how they'll use the trains, where they'll be looking for information, and gives us the first real opportunity for our operators to get the feel and look of entering and exiting stations with customers on the platforms. During the dress rehearsal, we'll also have a number of unplanned scenarios that we refer to as injects, where we'll assess our team's response and knowledge to our various SOPs or standard operating procedures. Now that the trial running has been announced, we'll be sending out communication to city staff seeking their interest in participating in this important and exciting milestone. Lastly, and as part of this 3-week period, we will be conducting station familiarizations tours for our front-facing staff to provide them with an opportunity to get to know the system as well. With new systems and the expanded rail service, we know it will take some time for customers to become familiar with lines 2 and 4. These tours will help our staff be ready to support customers during their trips from day one. Several activities are
planned for this 3-week period. They're important to guarantee that we're ready to welcome our passengers from the first day.
Provide some insight into our communications. Thank you.
Merci, Troy, et bonne journée. As we head into trial running, our goal is to be clear and transparent while ensuring the public is informed on the day-to-day status. As we've heard today, trial running is important, but also a very complicated process. So in the next few slides, I'll provide an update on our communications plan during trial running and on the customer readiness marketing campaign that will also ramp up during this time period in order to help customers prepare for the operation of the new lines. Next slide, please. So one of the lessons learned from Stage 1 LRT was the need for increased transparency and information sharing during trial running. This phase is important to building the overall confidence that the system is ready to function as designed. So we've developed a robust communications plan for this phase that will share as much information as possible with the council, with our city council, with media, and with the public. As part of this plan, as we've already heard today, we held a technical briefing in July. We've provided detailed updates at the LRT subcommittee. And today we're providing further specifics to ensure that there's clarity on reporting and the information resources that will be available during trial running. Shortly after this presentation, a memo will be distributed to council and to media, and it will reiterate important details from this briefing. With that memo, we will also be sharing a package of information with council that includes resources like an FAQ or a frequently asked questions document to help answer questions that councillors may receive from residents. We will also establish a dedicated trial running section on octranspo.com, which is really a central location for all information on the current status, explanations of the performance metrics, the process, and several other resources. Today's presentation and the memo I just referenced will be available on that website. And we really intend for the website to keep the public informed in a clear and a transparent manner throughout this process. So as Richard has outlined, the daily memo that provides the details on the daily performance will be distributed to the council and to media on Monday to Friday in order to keep those stakeholders informed. And those daily memos will also be available on our trial running website. And we will be promoting the link to this webpage on all of our OC Transpo social media accounts throughout the trial running process, so they'll be easy to find. In addition, our team will be available for daily media availabilities during the first phase of trial running in order to discuss the latest performance report and any other questions that reporters may have during this time. And then once we reach the end of trial running, as has been indicated today, our team will be providing a detailed report and presentation of the results at a formal meeting, and an update, and all of that updated information will also be available online. Next slide, please. So I've just talked about how we will track and report on trial running. And what I'd like to focus on now for the next couple of slides is the communications that will be underway in order to ensure that customers are aware and ready to use the new lines when they open. So as we've shared previously at committee meetings, we do have a robust and flexible customer information campaign to ensure everyone is well informed and can plan their trip ahead of time. To date, we have been keeping customers informed with regular messages across many channels and pointing them to our O-Train extension website, which is regularly updated with the latest information. This customer readiness and information campaign will become much more visible in our community over the next few weeks as it picks up in this pre-launch phase. We will continue to build awareness of the new lines among residents, to inform customers about the upcoming start of the service, and to point people to our O-Train Extension website for more information. Lines 2 and 4 will bring benefits to our community with new trains, new stations, and new connections across our city. At the same time, this new service means change for transit customers, and our communications are designed to support them through changes to their journey. Service information will be shared on many channels, including social media and our website, and in city-owned and digital advertising spaces across Ottawa. We were also working with major partners like Carleton University and the airport to share our messages with these important stakeholders. As trial running comes to an end, we will then begin a full paid advertising campaign. This is planned to run until approximately 6 weeks after lines 2 and 4 open. So during this time, our goal will be to ensure our customers are prepared for the transition to lines 2 and 4, educated about the important new features of the trains, and to encourage new riders to try the system. Customers will be able to find lots of information on our dedicated website, as well as the travel planner will be updated, which will then allow customers to plan future trips using lines 2 and 4. This paid advertising campaign will include advertising on many digital and print channels. There will also be radio ads, ads on streaming audio, social media, screens, and billboards across the city. During this phase, our communications will highlight the opening date and cover everything customers need to know about riding the new lines, navigating stations, making connections, traveling safely, and will emphasize any changes to transit service during the transition stage to opening. Included at this time, we will also be sending a mail out to approximately 120,000 households that are close to the new lines 2 and 4 and park and ride lots along the line in order to encourage them to give the new facilities a try. Our outreach staff will be present at transit stations when the system opens to both welcome and to support customers as they begin to use the system. Throughout each phase of our campaign, we are watching closely for questions from customers and from stakeholders. Our campaign is both data-driven and flexible, so that as staff are monitoring and receive feedback, adjustments can be made to ensure customers or residents are being reached effectively. Next slide, please. So finally, to summarize, here we've laid out our major milestones and communications from the beginning of trial running until the first day of service on lines 2 and 4. So first off, our trial running webpage will be live after this technical briefing in order to keep visitors updated on progress. Our pre-launch marketing will then begin on many different channels. And once trial running concludes and a launch date is confirmed, our full information campaign will be released, including paid advertising to highlight the opening date and key features of the new system. This phase will also include the direct mail brochure to residents along the line. At this time, we will also have the online travel planner and transit app updated in order to allow customers to plan their future trip. So these are important tools, and they will be highlighted in our campaign, including in the household mailout and in other prominent alerts that will be on digital channels. OC Transpo's team will be mobilized to support customers, stakeholders, and elected officials with the opening of lines 2 and 4, including to provide in-person customer outreach at stations. And we will continue to provide updates on how our communications plans are progressing as we move through trial running and approach the opening of the lines. Thank you, merci. I'll turn the presentation back to Renée.
Merci beaucoup, Amanda. As we look ahead, I want to emphasize that there is a clear and structured process in place to evaluate the results of our trial running. This process is informed by lessons learned from line 1 and recommendations from the public inquiry, ensuring that we approach this with the highest possible standards. Throughout this phase, we will share daily results with both council and the public, maintaining transparency as usual and open communication. Additionally, we have engaged third-party experts to review the results, providing unbiased judgment. At the conclusion of the trial running, we will present a detailed report and presentation to council, summarizing our outcomes. Following this, we will be able to announce an opening date, marking a significant milestone in our journey. I'm pleased to share that we are collaborating closely with TransitNext, whose skill and support are essential as we navigate throughout trial running. Now I'd like to open the floor for any questions you may have. Merci beaucoup tout le monde.
Okay, merci à tous. Thank you.
Thank you to all of you.
This is a technical briefing that will begin with questions from councillors. And I know we have a microphone in the audience. It looks like we're going to start with the following councillor. Whoever gets the mic, Councillor Tierney is lunging for the microphone there. So
great job.
one question and one follow-up.
Just
Lead
one.
the way.
Just one.
Okay.
This is a good news, I guess you could say. Obviously, we want to be sure that it operates correctly. So I don't think anyone's popping champagne corks at this point, but this is at least good news. I didn't hear anything about the East End, and obviously I'm here with council colleagues from the East. Is there any updates on the East End service by chance?
In terms of the East-West project, we will be able to provide an update at the next Light Rail Subcommittee meeting.
Okay, wonderful. And that's, I believe, coming up very soon. So that's good. And just as a quick follow-up, when it comes to making sure that people are aware of the new routes that integrate with our new systems, I'm very happy you're coming in November to a big community function in my area. Councillor Dudas and I will be present to make sure people know about the new routes when the East End finally arrives, which we're very excited about. Do you have similar campaigns? And I hear a lot of brochures and things like that. Will you be attending a lot of the events for our South End colleagues that certainly would like to be able to explain a lot of the new routes? If they integrate with the South End service, it might be a little different than the East because we have so many new ones, but just making sure that OC Transpo resources will be found to be able to provide that kind of needed feedback. Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for the question. And yes, we will certainly be doing outreach to customers in the South as well as the East and West when we reach that stage as well.
Thank you, Councillor Kitts.
Thank you. Thanks for the briefing today. I was hoping you could just sort of outline quickly, like I know that was a lot of information, the changes from the way testing was handled for stage 1 to this. Things that jumped out to me, I think there's more days for testing, daily performance report, the report to council, a more robust comms plan. But if you could give sort of a summary of some of the key changes, I think that would be helpful. Thank you.
Sure, I can start, and my colleagues who were there at that time can complete for sure. I think this time we have full transparency. There is no secrets. We have opened all of books. We have shared good news, bad news, opportunities, inconvenience, etc. So this is one thing. We have incorporated as well all lessons learned from the public inquiry report. And I think the most important is the relation with TNext, TransitNext. This relation, I can tell you, was so important on those phases because sometimes they wanted to go. And I can understand, it's a lot of money. To name things, to measure, it was factual. It was not subjective. So I think it was important. We have started to run train for years now. We run 9 trains constantly. And the maximum the train will run during the service revenue will be 9 trains. We don't have any recurrences. We don't have those issues that we will need to fix when we will open the service. That said, I have been clear, and I will say it again and again, it's a single structure. That means when the switch, that will happen, when the switch will break, we don't have this flexibility that we have with the stage 1, with the configuration line. It will be annoying, but that's why Troy will mimic a lot of diversions so we can quickly recover. that will happen, I want to make it clear. It's not because we haven't studied. It's not because we haven't done our exercise. It's normal around the world, okay? So 21 days, 14 running average, it's clear. At the 13 days, even if it's 100%, if it's 71% on the 14, we recommence. It's tough. We're going to suffer, but this is the way it is. And we have committed to do so and will do so. Please, my colleagues, you can complete.
Okay, thank you, Renee. To supplement what Madam Amilcar discussed, there were a couple of key recommendations coming out of the public inquiry related to the performance of each day of trial running. So, one of the key objectives that we've talked about here is that we are simulating passenger service, but we don't have passengers. So how do we simulate passenger service? So we will have a field observation team, which will be made up of a number of people that will travel on the system. They will get on and off the trains at various stations. They will exercise the devices that are at the stations, and they kind of act as a surrogate passenger service, so that the systems will be exercised on a daily basis. So I think we're in line with the object in the project agreement, but we're also in line with that public inquiry recommendation. On the flip side of that, the public inquiry also raised the issue of the number of work orders and the aggressiveness of the field observation team in stage 1 created issues. So the Transit Operations Control Center was inundated, and the maintenance team was inundated. And that did not help them to have a settled, stable operation at the beginning of trial running. So we're clear with our direction to the field observation team. We will be reasonable about the exercising of the devices. So the public inquiry was clear. We will not be flooding the Transit Operation Center with demands for work. And that's clear in the directions that we've given to the field observation team.
Is there a follow-up? No? Okay. The microphone is with Councillor Bradley, I think. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. And thanks for the presentation. Having 4 new stations in Gloucester Southgate Ward and the entirety of Line 4 in our community, I'm very excited to hear this news today. I just had a technical question with respect to trial running. Are you differentiating between Line 2 and Line 4 at all in that process? So is the 98.5% a combination of the 2 lines, or will each line be required to meet that target?
No, we'll be looking at an aggregate for the whole line.
So 98.5 between the 2 lines. So if there's an underperforming line, so if line 4, for example, is underperforming significantly or even marginally, is that going to trigger a restart or no?
If, for instance, there are issues on the airport line, that will bring down the overall average for that day. And if we get to a point where we get below 78%, then it's going to trigger a restart.
And is there any world where line 2 and line 4 launch separately?
I cannot recall, but one of the things that I can say is when we have connection with lines like that and we launch both, the measurement, it's for the whole thing. You cannot separate them because they are connecting, right? So you will take, let's say you come from Bayview and you go to South Keys, you're going to switch to the airport. So it's an integrated system. So that's why we have one KPI for the whole lines.
Great, thank you very much.
Councillor Leeper.
Thank you very much, Steve. Great news. Thrilled to hear it. Looking forward to it. The earliest the train could go into revenue service would be mid-November. What does that mean for the new ways to bus? Those are linked. What would the timing be?
Thank you for the question. I was going to bring this comment on October 10th, so I can start today and will provide you a thorough detail. So the new ways to bus will be implemented in April next year, because the next booking will start on December 30th. So that means by opening the lines 2 and 4 mid-November, we'll have few weeks in the current schedule. We are prepared for that. But December 30th, we'll need to go through with the winter booking. We don't recommend to launch New Ways to Bus in the middle of the winter for a lot of reasons, good reasons. The first one, it will be winter. 5,000 stops will be changed. We need to communicate a lot to our customers. And today, even if it's a good news, I want to be, optimistic, but realistic. We're not there yet. So that will mean we would need to prepare now for maybe December 30th. It's not possible. So we have met our people, the union, everyone understands that it's not a good idea to launch the New Ways to Bus, even if it's the right thing to do, because we believe that will bring a very good experience to our customers. But we don't want to fail. We want to succeed. So we're going to recommend, and we'll bring it at the Transit Commission next Thursday.
Thank you. And then if I may, a second question, the report that comes to council at the end of the trial running period, will you be asking council to approve revenue service for lines 2 and 4?
Thank you for the question. The answer is no. We will let you know how things happened, and based on the results, we will propose you a start date. It's our responsibility to say we are good to go, and we will announce it to you with respect.
Councilor Gower.
Thank you. I'm excited. This is good news. We're not there yet, but this is a big milestone. Thank you for the update. I wanted to ask about how the weather may affect testing. It's not unprecedented at the end of October to get a big dump of snow. And as you go into November as well, it becomes more and more likely. Are we expecting the same standard of performance in any kind of weather that might happen during that trial period?
We will not be adjusting the daily performance targets based on weather.
That's good to hear. And a small follow-up. We have at least one holiday Monday. I'm not sure if the schedules of the train change on a holiday Monday, but if they do, would we be evaluating to a regular weekday or to a lesser weekday?
Thank you for the question. Pat and Troy, correct me if I'm wrong. For the Thanksgiving, it will be a Sunday schedule. So we will continue our 14 days. And even if it will be holiday for you, it will not be holiday for us. So we'll report this month on that Monday, on Saturday and Sunday previously. And on Tuesday, we'll report on the Monday.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for your patience. For those online, we'll go to Councillor Kavanagh, who's online. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, for this. And this is good news. I've got the west end of stage 2 in my ward. And of course, it's going to open last, but we need some good news, and we need to show that trains are going to run. This is going to bring up the mood, I think, to show that things are moving forward. And I'm excited, and I was looking forward to this. I just wanted to ask about the timing of the trains, like how often in a regular setup they run. Is it how many minutes apart? And how does it fit in with stage 1?
That's a great question. The frequency of the trains is on line 2 and 4 will be 12 minutes in between trains, and that'll be the same frequency at all times. And then it will link up at Bayview Station with line 1, which, as you know, the frequency of those trains varies depending on the time of day, whether it be peak period or midday or afternoon. But service is going to be frequent, but on line 2 and 4, it's 12 minutes at all times.
Okay, and just a small follow-up: is there ambassadors at stations to help people figure it out?
So during the initial opening period, the first few weeks, there will be outreach personnel at some of our key locations to help customers adapt and continue with their journey.
Okay, thank you very much. Very exciting. Thanks.
Great, thank you. Councillor Carr is next.
Thanks very much. Yeah, definitely very exciting. I think I'm also looking forward to transit meeting next week to discuss the new timeframes for new ways to bus and how that will fit in. I just have a question with respect to trial running, and I'm not, I don't have an engineering background. When you're doing the 21 days trial running, are you weighting the trains to account for the load that would happen? Like, how does I wasn't clear on that sort of technical aspect.
Thank you for the question. There will not be any additional loading provided to the trains, so they will be running empty apart from the operator and occasionally the field observation team. In terms of testing at full load, that has all occurred over the last 2 years as part of the type testing for the vehicle. So we're very satisfied that the vehicles can achieve their necessary braking rates and their acceleration rates. So the trial running test is really to test the performance of the system to make sure that we can achieve the N10 run times and the headways, and that's not impacted by the weight of people on the train.
Okay, so just a quick follow-up on that. So if the 21 days goes as planned, the earliest possible that you would have a full load of passengers on the plane would be that date for the dress rehearsal, then I take it. So what's the earliest that could happen if we assume that 21 days goes off without a hitch and we hit the performance that we need?
Councillor, that's something I can follow up with you on. I believe we'd be planning to do that the second, maybe towards the end of the second week of trial running, but I can get the detailed schedule and follow up with you and let you know.
Okay, so the dress rehearsal would happen within the trial running period. Sorry, I know that's a third fault.
Sorry, my apologies. The dress rehearsal would happen after trial running in that 3-week period, post-trial running, but before we open for revenue service. So it would happen in that second week time period, post trial running, but those 3 weeks that I talked about where we're doing our final readiness activities.
Okay, perfect. Okay, that's what I understood. All right, thanks. I'll save the rest of my questions for transit. Thank you.
If I may, Chair, I think it's important to say as well that we cannot bring passengers before we receive the approval from Transport Canada. So this is very an important point. So that's why we cannot have this dress rehearsal before that. Okay.
Yeah, I understood that. But thank you.
Councillor Dudas.
Yes, thank you. And sorry, Renee, I'm going to get you to clarify just one of your responses regarding the new ways to bus, because in the East End, well, I'm very happy to see that we're making progression with lines 2 and 4. You know, all eyes are on the East Extension and the bus system. And I just wanted to receive some clarity. You mentioned that we're not ready to launch with the new ways to bus routes. There continue to be a couple of, I'd say, not insurmountable, but some obstacles to at least one, if not a couple of the routes that I want to certainly address with yourself and management. So just for my clarity, for my understanding, we will have time for those new routes, particularly in the East End, to have a conversation about if there needs to be some issues addressed.
Thank you for the question. I will explain again why we cannot launch the newest bus. Pat is here. Maybe he can tell you about possibility to improve some lines, knowing that the booking for the December 30th will start next week. So the new ways to bus cannot be implemented during the winter time for many reasons, because customers used to go, you know, eyes closed to their stop. And when we will start the new ways to bus, that stop could have changed. So we need sufficient time to announce that in advance. We need to be able to have an agreeable weather, because it's one thing to miss your bus during the winter, and it's another thing during the spring. So there is no good reason to implement New Ways to Bus in December 30th, which is the next booking. But can you maybe try to answer to Councillor Duda's question about some improvements, please?
Thanks, Renee. Yes, there's a little bit of time, Councillor, for us to continue the conversation that you and I had a few weeks ago.
And I flag that because I want to make sure I'm publicly on the record with stating that I am pleased with the progression and the testing and where we're going with the extended lines. But I do know that if we can't catch a bus to get to currently Blair Station and eventually the east extensions, but there's changes to the bus routes in between, that puts ridership at risk in the East End. So I look forward to continuing to work, Renee, with you and Pat and your team, and hopefully we can iron out those few months of choppiness in the system. And I am quite pleased with the announcement today. I look forward to taking lines 2 and 1. Thank you very much.
Chair, if I can maybe bring a clarity about when we will be ready to open lines 2 and 4. We'll come back anyway and we'll give all the info required. But today it's important to understand that we will call it a bonus because we will maintain the current service with buses. The R2 will stay in place. So we'll have parallel buses with the train. So people who have their connection today, when we will open the lines during this fall, they will continue to have the same connection, but those who would like to take the train can. Others would prefer to continue to ride our buses, knowing where the stops are, etc. They will be able to, and that will give us sufficient time during the winter to explain how New Ways to Bus will change with the opening of the lines 2 and 4, and how we will incorporate the New Ways to Bus to the lines. So again, in November, when we will open the lines, you will be able to continue to travel as today. You are not obliged to take the lines 2 and 4. We will recommend you for sure. We want you to come, but it will be easy because it will be a kind of a bonus, okay?
Thank you. Councilor Menard is next.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thanks to staff for the presentation. I was pleased to see the process for the trial running. It seems a lot more rigorous than I think the stage 1 launch, and really happy to see that there's been some lessons learned as part of that. So thank you for detailing that. Carleton students and staff have been waiting a really long time for this to get going. And of course, they had the very successful O train prior to this. And I remember being a student taking that and, living on campus or off campus and going to South Keys and getting groceries and coming back. It was fantastic. And it's been a long shutdown for them. So I just want to focus my comments, Chair, on the period of time that it will launch and what our communications efforts and getting people to take transit again. The notices that you're sending out in proximity to the train, are those going to go to students living in residence as well that are right on the line living in res?
So at this point, we haven't contemplated sending those notices to the university residences. We certainly can. We will have that discussion with our partners at Carleton University. We have looked at a number of dedicated advertising opportunities that are a part of our plan for the campus. So leveraging the digital screens that are around campus and signage and poster boards and the station as well to ensure that students are very aware of the change in the opening of the system.
Okay, I'll just make a plug for that Carleton Res because it's really easy. Like they have a mail room in the basement, and all their mail boxes are basically together. So you literally just hand off 3,500 of the flyers, and they get them in there. So it's I'll just make a plug and hopefully that we can do that, because certainly I know people living on res, they're right beside that train, and they'll use it to go get whatever they might want to go get nearby at shopping centers, et cetera. So hopefully we can work with Carleton in that way on the resident side. With regard to the getting people to take transit at this time, I had mentioned a while ago around the need to kind of incentivize people to try it again. We've been through a really tough period. It's been a hard time for everybody in the city, OC Transpo and everybody with transit. And there's a lot of negative headlines and that sort of thing. So some people don't even consider it, even though it could work very well for them in the future. So I guess a question is just have we devised some plans to incentivize people, even if it's just for a month after launch, let's say, to get back on the train, to try it again, to give it another shot if they previously maybe were frustrated. Are there any incentives of that sort, whether it be on the fare side or the access side or the transfer window side or anything of that sort, that'll say, look, come back, try it again. Transit is going to be a solution for Ottawa in the future, and we want you to be a passenger again with us on OC Transpo.
Thank you for the question. The answer is yes, we're working on something, and we should be able to come when we will propose the open date. This is where we'll walk you through the strategy to incentivize. It's a hard word for me, l'incitatif for those customers.
Okay, merci beaucoup. Thank you very much to staff, and thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I said it'd go back to councillors. Any other councillors? Councillor Tierney? Great.
Again, thank you. And when I was asking about, making sure that people are informed, the new ways to bus, I'm hearing about this April timeline now. And I think Councillor Dudas and I are very concerned because we're trying to inform the community. We're going to do a real blitz and media piece locally to make sure people know the routes might be longer, but they're going to be more on time. They're going to be bi-directional. This is a major plus that we're trying to sell back to a community that's been affected. That being said, I hear April because it's based on a seasonal. I look forward to October 10th. I wasn't going to raise this, but since the door is open on it now, I'll be asking further questions. Obviously, the last update we received, it would be end of May. Blues Fest probably wouldn't make the cut, so I'm hoping we'll have some good news on October 10th. But failing that, if we're going ahead and planning things, do we have to wait for seasonal schedules to implement the new ways to bus routes? Because that's a pretty big chasm to cover. And if we're going out trying to sell to our communities how important this new bi-directional routes and more on time they're going to be, I want to be able to ensure that we can launch based on the timing of Stage 2 Light Rail East, the ability to be able to have these new routes that are going to feed these stations. So maybe I can ask you to comment on that. Do we have to wait for seasonal schedules to be able to implement these new routes?
Okay, that's a great question. And I will, can I answer in French for you?
Sure.
Parce que c'est important, je veux utiliser les bons mots.
It's very important. So first of all, I have a lot of experience in transit, and not once did I see a major change like the one we will implement. Nothing has ever been tried during the winter. Never seen that. I did double check, and I know that in Ottawa, you have a special situation. So nobody is recommending launching a new system or a new routes in the middle of the winter. Then we have 5,300 bus stops that will be modified. If a person is routinely going to exactly the same stop every single day without even looking around, they may forget. And then suddenly, there's no more bus stop, it's the middle of winter, and you're stuck in the snow. We also have people, we have to have people to help them, because someone cannot stay 3 hours waiting for a bus that will never pass. Today, we are October 3rd. And we haven't yet decided on the launching date for line 2 and 4. We're making an announcement to say that, yes, we will launch it, but we cannot announce a date right now. If we do that right now, people will be waiting on the 28th of 9th of October on this platform. So it's going to be a very substantial change, but a good news for the East. It's a completely different question. On the East, there's an extension. It's only connections. It will be very localized. When we're talking about a Trillium North-South line, we have to reroute some buses. We have to look at the frequency of the buses and the routes. It's completely different. So we will be implementing small changes for the East extension. We're just going to wait for the next booking. But when we're talking about the major transformation, such as this one, never in my life and never my colleague did see a major change in the middle of the winter. So I do not recommend to make that change in the winter.
I'm glad we're able to bob and weave a little, but so April's the seasonal change. What's the following seasonal change schedule? Just out of my curiosity.
After the end of April, the next seasonal change is at the end of June, beginning of July. And then the next one after that comes at Labor Day.
At Labor Day, yeah. So you can see the large increments, yeah.
End of the university year.
Yeah.
At late April. End of the high school year, late June. Return to school at Labor Day, and then another one around Christmas time. Those are the four we usually have.
Great. Grand merci. I look forward to October 10th for further updates on the East End. Sorry about that. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Leeper.
Thanks. Last question. With respect to headways, will we get, when you're telling us what the on-time or delivered performance is in those daily reports, will we be told what the headways were that they were expected to deliver? And is there a minimum headway written into the contract that they're expected to deliver and that we'll be testing against? Headways are still touchy with me.
Thank you for the question. There is a solo headway. It's every 12 minutes.
Perfect. And that's what they'll be tested against? Amazing. Thank you. Merci.
Any other councillor questions? I don't see any online. No. Councillor's office questions? Any burning questions? Don't see any. Thank you very much to members of council for their participation today. Thank you to staff for putting the technical in a technical briefing. We'll pause now to set up for the media availability. So thank you very much. We'll be back in, I think, about 10 minutes or so. Thank you.
Welcome back, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Kendra Titley, and I will be your moderator. Je serai votre modératrice aujourd'hui. I will now invite each media agency to ask their questions. You may ask a question with a follow-up. Nous allons maintenant répondre aux questions des médias qui pourront poser une question et une question de suivi. We'll start with Elise Skura at CBC Ottawa.
Thanks very much for allowing us to ask our questions today. First of all, I'm hoping that Madame Amilcar could just speak a little bit again about something that you talked about with kind of the different challenges between having this kind of rail line and the Confederation line in terms of, you know, track switches, but maybe not storms and that kind of thing.
Sure. So the Trilum lines, lines 2 and 4, they are diesel vehicles first, and a lot of segment are single track. So that means you have to wait on a queue to be able to cross. It will depend which side that the switch will go. And it's common around the world when with single track, the switches are very sensitive, even if we have the very good technology here, and so far we are doing great, but I know that will happen. We will have a switch problem. So when we have that, and we can have that as well on the Confederation line, but we can use the other track because we have 2 tracks, right? So we can single track on the Confederation line when we have a problem with the second track. But because on the Trilum line, a lot of segment, we have only 1 track. When it's broken, you have to stop. So that's why Troy will need to make some diversion so we can have 2 loops just to continue to deliver the service, but it won't be line bank to Bayview. It will be line bank to South Keys maybe, and maybe Bayview to, I don't know, Greenboro, whatever. But that's why we need to do so, and we know that. But that said, we know as well that we don't have to face with OCS issues. You know, this is something that we have to deal with the Confederation line. We won't have that, and which is great. And it will be easy as well to tow vehicles if we have to. So those kind of things, I would say that are the differences. Yeah.
And during the trial running process, if there were to be one of these kinds of switch problems, would that be an automatic failure, or would it depend on if there were processes that allowed them to continue the on time from the terminus stations?
This is a great question. The 98.5% is a trigger. So yes, during the trial running, that can happen, that we have a switch issue. The capacity of TNEX to resolve that very quickly with technicians, etc., and recover, maybe that will be a past day. And don't forget something, it's a running average. So you can have 100% pass, 96%, that should be considered as a fail, but we will wait because the average, if we have 98.5, we are good. So that can happen. That's why it's 98.5. It's not 100% because it's not possible. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. We will go to Arthur White-Crummy, CBC Radio.
Hi. I know that you've been very clear that all sorts of things could happen to make you extend the days in this 21-day period. But based on how the system is performing right now, how confident are you that you'll be able to get this the first time?
I don't want to be too positive, but we have studied hard. We have done our exercise. Today, if we are here in front of you, it's because we are confident. But there is a but. That can happen. That will happen. It's normal. So our capacity to quickly resolve things and continue our service, this is key here as well. But we will deal with problems. But now, today, we are 100% confident because TNEX has demonstrated very well reliability, and we have worked with them very closely. There was a good collaboration, so the vibe is positive.
Great. And you've also been clear on what the triggers are during the 14-day period, the threshold, what will prompt extra days. I'm wondering if there's a similar target or threshold during the failure scenario portion. Like, is there something that you'll be looking for? Is there something that could happen during that period that would prompt you to extend that timeline?
You mean the last 7 days?
Yes, the 7 days of the scenarios, like, you know, a kind of medical emergency or something.
Okay, so the last 7 days, it's for us. We're going to play with the system. There is no fail or pass day. If we need to play more with the system, we'll do. But what we say, it's a minimum of 7 days to play with the system. But the pass will be for T-Next, because that's why I said many times, it's T-Next exam. OC Transport will play with the system to make sure that we can mimic everything that could happen to our customers, but there is no pass and no fail for the last 7 days.
Thank you. Next, we have Kimberly Fowler, CTV Ottawa.
Hello. My first question, somebody already asked that, but I have a question about OC Transpo is dealing with some major debt issues as well. This trial period that you have being set up, has that been delayed at all to save any money for the OC Transpo?
Absolutely not. We are working closely with Transit Next, and one of the things that was clear, we will not go on trial running if we're not going to succeed. We are going on trial running on October 7th because now we feel, T-Next, Transit Next, and us feel that we are ready to go.
Thank you very much.
Do you have a follow-up, Kimberly? We will go to Mackenzie Gray, Global News.
Yeah, hi there, Ms. Amilcar. Can people expect when the new lines open that it will be a similar situation to line 1 right now, that on non-peak hours, that it will run at 10-minute intervals?
The answer is no, because the headway that we will offer all the time with the lines 2 and 4 will be 12 minutes headway.
12-minute sheets way.
Yes.
Okay. Many folks that we speak with when it comes to this from a more overarching issue believe that the city is in a death spiral when it comes to OC Transpo, that you have cut services, reducing the train as an example, cut the number of buses that bring people to the train while increasing the fares for people to take. And we've seen a reduction in the number of people who've taken that. Do you believe that you have any responsibility with the cuts that OC Transpo has brought forward to the reduction of the number of people who've taken the train and the services that people receive in the city?
Can you repeat it again for me? Go slowly to make sure that I understand you, please.
There has been a reduction in the services that OC Transpo has provided to people, particularly the train reduction during the day as an example, while fares have increased. And a number of residents, many of whom have spoken at meetings like this, have said that buses to get people to the train have problems, many of them not showing up. Do you feel that you have any responsibility with the services that have been cut at OC Transpo for the situation that the services are being provided to people in the city right now?
Thank you for the question. I'm the general manager of OC Transpo, and I'm fully responsible of everything at OC Transpo. I'm accountable, but I'm dealing as well with taxpayers' money. We know that since the pandemic, we have dealt with a lot of problems. The ridership is not there yet. I think we saw good things in September. Hopefully that will continue in October. So we have to do our due diligence. We have to do our job. For me, running a train should mean running passengers, not empty seat. It was the case out of peak. It was a very difficult decision because I'm a firm believer that put it and people will take it. But we need 120 million for next year. If I want to continue to offer a good service to bus on the bus side, where 80% of our people are back, those are unfortunate but good decisions. And for sure, if the government can help us, we'll take it. But yes, I'm responsible of those decisions because this is my responsibility. And with the budget I have, it was the right decision.
Thank you. Nous allons maintenant à Chantalia Louis, de droit.
Oui. L'année dernière, vous avez cherché à...
Last year, you had a hiring drive for more than 500 workers at OC Transport. There are 2 new lines that are about to be opened. You surely have a new need in terms of labor. What are you doing to deal with those needs? Thank you very much for your question. I thought I would announce that on the 10th of October for the first time. There is no longer a shortage of labor at OC Transport. We have all our drivers. We planned all the operators that we need for the Trillium line, for the East Line extension as well. So all our people are there, and we're very, very proud of that because there is a worldwide shortage. We've managed to buck that trend. Thank you.
For the first time, I would say since we have started to work on the recruitment, we can announce today that we don't have any shortage anymore. So we have our bus drivers. We have secured enough bus drivers to become operators. We will need to train them for sure, but they are with us. So we are very proud of that because around the world, it's a shortage. It's a very, very, very massive problem that my colleagues in transit are dealing with. And we are very proud that now it's behind us.
Thank you. We'll go to Blair Crawford, the Ottawa Citizen.
Yes, so this is a question for Mr. Holder. On the Confederation line, there are problematic areas, the curves at Herdman and so on. And I'm just wondering if there are, or what areas of the Trillium line might keep you awake at night, if there's something that's worries you, critical points that you'll be watching especially closely.
Thank you for the question. That's a good question. I don't think there's anywhere on the line that would equate to the kind of issues that we've experienced on line 1. In terms of minor service disruptions, one area of concern that we'll be watching closely is the Dowse Lake Tunnel. So at the approach to the tunnel, we have a guideway intrusion detection system that can be triggered by small animals or by birds, and that will interrupt our service. So the optimization of that system is going to come with time, but that would be one area I'm not going to lose sleep over it. But unfortunately, it will impact service a little, potentially. We do not have the same kind of small radius curves as on line 1. So we're really not expecting any of this similar kind of issues with cartridge bearing assemblies. We don't even have cartridge bearing assemblies on these trains. The trains are very different. I think what we'll be closely monitoring is the ability of the yard, the movements of the vehicles in the yard during the overnight operations. There's a lot of work that TNEX maintenance team needs to undertake so that they, in the time that they have between receiving the vehicles at the end of the shift and then launching the vehicles in the morning, and they have been, extremely good at demonstrating that they can achieve that. But it's a very tight timeline that they have, and so again, that would be something that potentially may impact service for short periods at the beginning of the day. But in terms of major system outages, as Madam Amilcar discussed, we don't have any OCS system, so we don't have to deal with any concerns about the lightning strikes or catenary systems coming down. I mean, this is a very robust, reliable, stable system that is used all around the world. So we're very confident about the reliability moving forward.
Thank you. Next question is for Madame Amilcar, and kind of a personal question. You've been under a lot of pressure from counselors from the media over the last couple of years because of the delays. And how are you feeling today with this news?
As usual, focus.
No relief? Thank you.
Thank you. On va maintenant à Frédéric Papin, Radio-Canada.
Bonjour à tous. Madame Amilcar et vos collègues, j'ai vu
Ms.
personne.
Amilcar, I didn't see anyone crossing their fingers when you made this announcement. This means that you're confident, Ms. Amilcar. Are you telling residents that on the 11th of November, the service will be launched? Is that what you're telling them? No, I'm not. I'm not saying that at all, because we've done our homework. It's the final exam now. You know, you can have stomachache on the day of your exam and you can fail your exam. That could happen. That's why we have a 14-day period. It's important that we succeed, and we're here today because we're confident. We've talked about possible problems, the switches, for example, but there aren't recurrent issues that keep coming up time and time again that we have to patch. We resolved all the issues. Everything we've been able to do in advance, we've done that. So if something happens, it'll be new, a new issue, which was something we didn't see coming. It wasn't on our radar, but we have done our due diligence to really ensure that everything goes well. But this is rolling stock and we can have issues. Let's talk about the trains that people will be able to visit. Now, you are confident in this train. You've mentioned this in English. This is a more robust train, basically. Is that right? Oh, it is. The train, the Stadler train, these are trains that have existed here, have been rolling since 2000. It's a diesel train. It's really, really tough. It's not just fluff. It's very, very strong. It's really stood the test of time. These are diesel engines. They're very, very reliable. Once again, and I'm sorry that you're going to hear me saying this time and time again, we have these switches, this switch system. Everybody has to wait to go through because there are parts of the track that are one track. There's going to we wanted to avoid the signalman, for example. That's too slow. We took this decision because it was cheaper, and the single track sections are sections where there's less ridership. We want to provide a proper service, but we don't necessarily have enough people to justify a double track system. But the system is for the city's been proactive rather. If we have more people, more passengers, and if we see that we need to increase the number of trains, so we're able to do that. It'll cost money, but this is built into the plans. We're thinking on a 30, 40-year timeline just before I take my retirement. Thank you.
Next, we'll go to Shane Seguin, Rail Fans.
Thank you for taking our questions today. So my first question is, what key technical adjustments or improvements have been made during the final stages leading up to trial running for lines 2 and 4? And how do these ensure the systems are fully prepared for public operation?
Okay, thank you for the question. I think what we have been able to do over the last few weeks is to optimize the timetable that is being run by the vehicles. And so, as Madame Amilcar has discussed, this is there are many sections of single tracking. So what's very important for the timetable to achieve those 12-minute headways is that the vehicles traveling in opposite directions, north and south, meet at the appropriate time at the appropriate place. And so a few seconds delay can cause interruptions to the service across the whole line. So what we have been able to do over the last few weeks is go through various iterations of a timetable just to improve, just to tweak each of those meets, adjusting the times at each of the stations, making changes to the times that the vehicles wait at the terminus stations, And we feel like, we have definitely seen the improvement to the overall service during the day. And it doesn't stop here. So we now feel like we have a good, stable timetable to run throughout trial running. But I think it is likely once we get through the trial running period and Troy and the operations team kind of have that system to then further optimize, we will probably make more tweaks based on the learnings to date and optimize that timetable even more.
My follow-up kind of goes from what you just finished off by saying. So once the lines are operational, will there be additional monitoring or trial phases to address unforeseen issues, such as, and how will feedback from initial passengers be integrated into ongoing improvements?
Thank you for the question. The answer is yes. The timetable is a good example because the example that I can give is at Carleton. We know that we have a lot of students, right? So we need to provide extra time to embark and disembark, but we don't want to be late. So we have what we call the dual time. So we will play with that to make sure that we have sufficient time to disembark and embark people, and we're still on time. So those kind of tweak, we will need to continue to work on them.
Thank you.
Maybe if I can just add too as well, some of the other things that we'd be looking at, and we try to identify these things through one of the reasons for the dress rehearsals, identify things. And I talked about, new customers onto the line. We want to see where they're looking. We want to see where they're going. So, that gives us an opportunity to look at where our signage is placed, and if we need to make some adjustments to that or make it stand out more. Those types of things. So, there's lots of opportunities for us to collect feedback and make some minor tweaks and adjustments. The schedule being the biggest one, but another one, a good example is signage. And if you see people are finding difficulties finding something, then maybe we need to look at, how can we enhance that? So that's another example.
Thank you. We will be offering additional questions today. If you have another question, please feel free to walk up to the mic. We'll hear from Blair Crawford at the Ottawa Citizen.
Just as we approach the beginning of revenue service, I wonder if you've made any decision on whether there'll be a period of free service or reduced fares or anything like that.
Thanks for the question. I will come back with a scenario that I will recommend to council. So today I'm not ready to do so, but we're working on something for sure to emphasize customers to come and try the system.
And just a final question, during the opening of the Confederation line, famously or infamously, the test scores, the goal lines were changed. And do we have your assurances that there'll be no change to that 98.5% goal for on-time performance in this round of testing?
100%. It's definitely, that's why we opened, our book. So the 98.5, it's there. And even if it's 100% for the first 13 days, if it's 71% on the 14, we recommend. It's clear.
Very good. Thank you.
We'll go to Shane Sege, Rail Fans.
Can you detail the expected travel times for passengers along line 2 and line 4? So from one end of the line to the other, and in the sense of specific routes such as Bayview to South Keys to Limebank, and South Keys to the airport. Oh, and in addition, what the typical operating hours will be for those lines.
Maybe I'll look at my colleague if he can. I know the approximate end-to-end run times, but a pretty detailed question. We may want to follow up with the written response to you on that. But Pat, you're pretty good with those numbers.
But I'm not that good. So
we can follow up.
Shane, if you got a minute afterwards, we can go through what's online already and show you the first trips in the morning, last trips at night, and the travel time along the line. And if anyone else needs it, it's available at octranspo.com.
Okay. And my final question, given the current timeline for new ways to bus to be implemented, which you outlined as most likely being in April, If we look at the connections currently planned for Limebank Station, is there going to be any bus service going to Limebank from the surrounding communities when the line opens?
Thank you for the question. The answer is yes. We will prolong 3 lines to make sure that they can go to Limebank, and we'll explain all of those things when we will propose an open date. The R2, which is the mimic of the Trillium line, will stay on operation. And yes, so all of those things will come back in a few weeks when we will propose how things will go. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Have I missed anyone? All right, this concludes our media availability. Ceci conclut le point de presse d'aujourd'hui. Thanks.